Hey guys, welcome back to my channel in the Paper Alchemy series. Last time I showed you how to build a mold and decal with very few supplies and the step-by-step process of making handmade paper. If you haven't seen those videos yet, I encourage you to first go back and watch them, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. Today, we are going to use those basic concepts that we learned earlier in the series and step it up a notch with impressions, inclusions, and embedded objects. Let's get started. The first part of the video, I'm just preparing my pulp. If you need more instructions on this part, just feel free to refer back to my previous video in the series. Basic paper pulp is usually a grayish or beige color depending on the paper that you start with. For this demonstration, I wanted some color variations, so I used some orange, red, and pink construction paper. To make the paper a little more interesting, I decided to not blend it thoroughly, and I left bigger strips of paper in the pulp just for a little more interest. I want to apologize in advance for this video. When I went in to edit it, my software decided to crash on me and I ended up losing some footage. But I'll do my best to still try to explain it enough so you can get the basic idea. If you have any questions about it, feel free to just leave me a comment below and I will get them answered for you. Remember, the best part about this is the experimenting of it and seeing all the different effects that you can achieve. Now let's talk about inclusions. I already love handmade paper, especially for its beautiful deckled edges that you get and how each page is so unique. But then while I was making it, I thought, why not make this gorgeous paper smell nice too? You can do this a couple ways. You can go and add some herbs from your garden, fresh herbs from your garden, or you can go directly to your spice cabinet and just sprinkle a little in when you're mixing your pulp that way. What I decided to do off camera was add in a couple drops of some lavender essential oil. Just a couple of drops of that and my finished paper was definitely a game changer. When I added the essential oils, I immediately thought of some stationery. You would have the beautiful deckled edges and it would smell nice, so I thought, who would not want to receive a letter or something that would not only look good but smell good too? In this clip, I'm going to show you how to add in embedded objects in your paper. Because I love to experiment and I already blended up so much pulp, I played around with embedding a couple different things. I will add some close-up pictures of those in a bit. On one, I decided to add little strips of twine. The trick with that was making the paper thick enough so the twine was actually embedded in deep enough so it wouldn't just fall off the paper. I had to give that a couple different tries because it was just sliding right off. But once I got the hang of it, I realized it just needed to be thicker paper and pushed down in further. Remember, you can easily control the thickness of your paper just by allowing more pulp to go on top of your mold when you're sticking your mold and decal in the paper. Then I decided that I wanted to make some plantable paper that I could share some seeds from my garden and just give those as a gift or just to try something different out. I figured that would be just a little nice thing to experiment with. So that's what you see me doing here, is pulling my sheet, and so I'm making sure that the paper is really thick because I wanted my seeds to stick. So with the paper being so thick, you had to really cooch the sheet really good and get all of the water out. I hate that it's called cooching, by the way. I promise I'm saying that right, but I just hate saying that. You know how you can type a word in and the computer will actually tell you how it's pronounced? I swear I did it so many times just to make sure that I was saying it right. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is stupid. Why don't they just name it something else? So for the rest of the time, I'm just going to say sponging off the excess water. So that's what I'm doing here, is just pressing my sponge in and trying to remove all that excess water from the paper. And here you see me finishing taking the decal off. And I decided to grab a couple of cookie cutters. Of course, I went for the 2 flower cookie cutters that I had, flower-shaped cookie cutters. And because I made the paper so thick, I really had to dig it in there. Also chose the heart cookie cutter shape because I thought for like a Valentine's present or something, you could give seeds from your garden and just, they could either attach the plantable heart-shaped cookie cutter paper to a gift, or that could be the gift itself. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea. So I went ahead and added the heart and 2 flowers. So then here you see me, I decided to just cut that felt piece of paper because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. So I cut it, and then I'm pressing the heart one in. Then I figured the easiest way, since the paper was so thick, was to just hold the cookie cutter down firmly and just peel the excess pulp away from the actual shape. And you're not wasting anything because all you have to do is the pulp that you're peeling off, just throw it back in your vat, and then you can use it to make another sheet of paper with, or in this case, I ended up making some more plantable paper with it. At first, it was really driving me nuts that I couldn't pull it away and have a perfectly clean shape. But then I thought, this is dumb. All I got to do is wait for the paper to dry and then just cut around it and clean up all the edges. So here you see me getting a little frustrated, just pulling it down, pulling it out, and trying to push it down at the same time. But I kept it in there just so you can see that I was frustrated too. Then I went with some seeds that I had saved, some small hollyhocks that I had in my garden. I had saved the seeds from. And I tried these first. You see me putting those on there. But these seeds were actually a little bit thick for what I was trying to do. So I put those up and went for my larger hollyhock seeds that I had on hand because those were a lot flatter. So here I'm like, okay, these are a lot flatter. Let's try those. So what I did was just put those on top of the pulp that I'd already pressed in the cookie cutter. And I didn't worry about spacing. I know a lot of flowers you have to space perfectly, but I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put a whole bunch in there because most people thin out their flowers anyway once you see how many start to bloom after they start growing. Speaking of flowers and saving seeds, you're going to notice in a lot of future episodes or tutorials that I'm going to be using a lot of garden crafts. I absolutely love my flowers, and I try to save as many seeds as I can at the end of their season, and I just store them in a brown paper bag so they stay dry. Here what I'm doing is taking a spoonful of pulp and just putting it on top of the seeds and just smooshing it in on there so it can stay nice and flat. So I'm just filling all those edges, putting it in all the little corners just so all the seeds stay nice inside there and not fall out. I just love saving my seeds. Why waste them? I mean, they already grow such beautiful flowers. I don't save all of my seeds, but if there's something that I love and they just produce so many and they store so easily, why not? So I'm curious, do you save your seeds or do you just start fresh every year? Leave me a comment and let me know what you do with yours. I'm curious. So here what I'm doing is just filling the rest of the cookie cutters with pulp, and then I'm taking a sponge and just removing the water, let's say that instead of the other word, removing the extra water with the sponge. So I'm just pushing the sponge on top and directly on the cookie cutter and trying to remove all that excess water. I mean, you don't really want your seeds to get molded in there, so you want them to dry as quickly as possible. So best thing to do is as soon as you're done pressing this and you remove them, just hang that sheet in a sunny place so they dry out pretty quickly. You don't want them to stay moist long, otherwise they're going to either get moldy or they're going to start to bloom before they're ready. I didn't mean to say bloom, I meant germinate. You don't want them to get moldy or germinate too soon. Here is the finished product after they had already dried and I was able to trim around the edges. And like I mentioned earlier, if you want to use it as a tag, all you need to do is just like hole punch the side of it and tie a string through it and then just attach that to the gift that you're giving, and then it's like a present within a present. And then you probably want to tell the person you're giving it to how to plant it. And really all you need to do is just lay it out in your garden when it's time and just cover it with some moist potting soil. I think this one alone would be something fun to do with kids, especially if you're a teacher and you're looking for something to do with your students. Not only would they get to choose the color, but maybe the actual shape of the cookie cutter or the flowers that they're using. I think this would just be another unique gift that they could give or make if you're looking for something extra fun to do with them. Here is the example of the twine that I embedded in the paper. Just some close-up shots of that. I thought that was really cool and unique. This one would also be cool to maybe wrap a present in. There are all sorts of ways that you can use handmade paper. I just love its versatility. I also experimented with putting some flowers in it. So what I did with this in particular piece of paper was I just put it on top and I just kind of mushed it in there really well and didn't put pulp on top of it just because I wanted to see what kind of effect that I could get. I figured this would look gorgeous on some stationery or even just a page on a journal, so I may use that for this. But another way that you could do is just actually crumble up your flowers. You could leave a couple of bigger pieces or even leaves. Leaves would be really pretty, and just not make your paper as thick. And then the leaves would actually peek through. The leaves or flowers would actually peek through. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can use this. So I just love how these purple on purple turned out. I thought that was really unique. So I have a couple different, obviously tried that a couple different ways. So I have a couple different sheets of that. I just love all the detail. Even on part of it, some of the flower on this bottom part flaked away, but some of it stayed on. And then that kind of brings up the next thing I wanted to talk about, which that footage unfortunately got deleted, but that is impressions. With impressions, you're fixing to see a really good example of that. What you want to do is put for this example, I used a leaf, and you put it on the wet pulp. Well, then when it's almost completely dry, you want to make sure it's pressed down firmly, is remove it. And then it just leaves the impression and the detail left in the paper. And I chose leaves just because I love all the little details and lines of the leaves that it ends up leaving in the paper. And this I thought was a really good example of that, just the extra texture that the impression leaves. So I hope you learned a lot about handmade paper and impressions, inclusions, and embedded objects, and I hope you give it a try. Let me know if you do. Leave a comment, or if there was something hard to follow or you have a question, just let me know and I'll do my best to answer it. Until then, we'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. We'll see you then.